GameSci.com. GameSci.com.
Heidi ho, neighborinos! I'm Professor Chris Ferguson. Welcome to the video on JavaScript Windows, pop-ups, patterns, and object-oriented programming. Why does the professor keep talking about objects? Because when you learn objects, you not only learn JavaScript, you learn C++, PHP, Java, Python, C#, and every other object-oriented programming OOP language. The syntax for each language might be slightly different, but the objects are pretty much the same. The window object is how I mastered OOP. The window object is a perfect way to teach OOP. You can see the properties of the object when the window is displayed. The methods have a visible effect on the window. And when you learn how windows work in one language, you kinda learn how they work in all languages. The key is to learn the patterns of how objects and windows work. New win equals open. HTTPS CNN.com, CNN win, and a width of 400 and a height of 200. Open a new pop-up window, a separate window from the main screen. It could also be a browser tab. The first parameter is the URL you want loaded. The second is the window name. They are often used for pop-up ads. I don't like pop-up ads, but you need to know how to do it. Focus on the parameters to the open method. NewWin is both a window object in computer memory and a browser window on the screen. Focus on the objects. Objects have properties and the parameter values are assigned to those variables and they directly affect what is displayed on the window. If these properties change, what you see on the window changes. So notice the first parameter, CNN.com. It's assigned to the location variable of the new win object. And CNN.com shows up in the browser window. The width of 400 and the height of 200 show up in the width and height variables of the window object. That means this browser window will be 400 pixels wide by 200 pixels tall. That's how it works. The values you pass as parameters go into the object, and what's in the object directly affects how the window looks. NewWin.Focus. Objects contain two things, properties/variables and methods/functions. Go to the NewWin variable, the dot says go inside it, and run the focus method. Pop-up windows can be partially or fully blocked by other windows on the screen. Focus brings NewWin to the front, making it fully visible. If something was blocking our window, the focus would make it the focus of the screen. It would make it on top. It would show the entire window to the NewWin.Location equals HTTPS ESPN.com. Use NewWin to change the location property in the object, which in turn changes the web page displayed on the pop-up window. This was displaying CNN.com. It will now display ESPN.com. Note the pattern. NewWin is a window object, just like the main browser is a window object. Like an iframe window object. Everything you learn for one works for all. The other pattern I want you to make aware of, focus is a method because it has parentheses here. Location must be a variable or a property because it doesn't have parentheses. Learn to spot what is the object, what is a variable, what is a method. NewWin.Blur. Notice the window disappeared. When you press the minus sign at the top of a browser window, it is removed from the screen and placed on the taskbar. That is what the blur command does. The window is not gone. The object is still in memory. It's just hidden. You could click on the window in the taskbar or run the focus routine and the window would pop right back up. All the blur routine does is say take it off the screen. You could pop it right back up in a number of different ways. But what I want to make clear here is the object that represents that window is still active. And anytime we want to call focus, we can pop this thing right back up on the screen. NewWin.Close. Ooh, that's more serious than blur. Close not only removes the pop-up window from the screen, it means you cannot display it again. The window is gone. You've closed it out. I always add the new win equals null to make sure it removes the memory for the window object, so I can use the null flag to determine if the pop-up exists. If new win equals null, I know the window has been deleted. If new win does not equal null, I know it's active. To display another pop-up, you must call open again. That was just a simple short program. Pop up a window, show it on the screen, change what's displayed on it, and then boom, we've just gotten rid of it. Did you notice the pattern? We've done this 3 times now. First, we learned how the built-in window dot object and its properties and methods. Second, we learned an iframe with a name equals page 2, where page 2 dot is the same as window dot. Now we have new win dot, which is the exact same thing as the window dot and the page 2 dot. Everything works the same. A window is a window. It doesn't matter whether it's the main window or a pop-up window or an iframe window. They all work the same. All the commands you learned for one work for all 3. Once you recognize the pattern, you know how to manipulate all 3 of these window objects. Dynamic pop-up windows. Dynamically generate content for pop-up windows. In the last example, we just showed existing pages, CNN and ESPN. Now, we'll generate the content for the window itself. They're often used for pop-up ads, warnings, or confirmations. In the early days, pop-up windows were used for very irritating ads, so people blocked pop-up windows. But they're also useful for warning messages like, you're missing these required fields, your order cannot be processed, or confirmation messages like, this action will delete all your data on this website, please confirm. Pop-ups aren't just for ads, they're for warnings and confirmations too. A pop-up window is a design decision. There are other ways. Learn the patterns. The code used to dynamically generate a pop-up would be very similar to the code for an iframe or a dynamic span or div placed on the main web page. It is a window object that contains a document object, a DOM. Very similar code can use the DOM to modify the HTML tags, which changes what's displayed in all 3 scenarios. So you have a very important message to display to the user. You have a choice. You can put up a pop-up window, or you could have an iframe on your page and splash the error message in the iframe, or you could just go use the DOM and put a big giant message using a div on the main web page. It's up to you. They all work the same once you learn the patterns. Win2 equals open with an empty parameter, add win with 200 height 100. This will put up an empty pop-up window on the screen. Open a new pop-up window, a separate window from the main screen. Could also be a browser tab. The first parameter is empty quotes, no URL inside of it, so it creates a blank window. The code below will dynamically generate the HTML for this pop-up window. Note the object properties. What am I saying? We put up a window with no HTML in it, and it's up to us to add the HTML to the window. Also notice width is 200, height is 100. You're seeing that in the variables of the object. No URL in this first parameter, so no value in the location variable. That's why we have a blank pop-up window here. This is a comment, so we're not actually executing this code. We could have done a win2 equals open and pass it a first parameter of template.html. To create a nicer pop-up than a simple one done here, create an HTML template file with all the common elements that the ads share, then use getElementById to customize each ad. In this case, the page would load the starter HTML when it pops up, not a blank window. If you're building a window with a significant amount of HTML, this is a better way to do it. We're only going to do a little bit of HTML, so we don't need a template file. I'm going to go to win2.document.write and output a div tag with an ID D1 and myDiv as the text between the tags. Again, document.write is kind of the old way to create HTML. There are DOM methods that will create elements and add them to the window, but it takes more lines of code that will fit on this slide. The dark text that you see here on the page is what's actually displayed. That's what you see in the window. The smaller red text around it is the actual HTML that actually gets written to the window. Better than document.write is getElementById for changing the HTML. The myDiv that was between the div and /div tags is replaced by the ahref that we dynamically wrote to the inner HTML. The dark by this link is what's displayed on the pop-up window, and the smaller red text is the document's HTML after this code executes. That's what you do when you change the inner HTML. You replace the myDiv with this brand new HTML starting with the ahref and ending with the /a down here. This is the better way to dynamically write to a pop-up window. When2.document.close. Notice where the arrow is going to. It's going to the end of the HTML. Be careful. When2.document.close is very different than when2.close. Document.close says I'm done writing or changing the document's HTML. We are closing the document, not the window. When2.close would delete this entire window. We don't want that. We don't want it removed from the screen. We want to leave the window there. What we're closing here is the output to the DOM, not the window. This is very important because the browser will sort of sit there in a load state waiting for more HTML. When you close the document, you tell the browser, I'm done, display what you have. The code in the pop-up can do this. Parent.document.getElementById x1.innerHTML equals change something on the parent window. The code inside the pop-up window can have a script tag, and that script tag can go out and change the parent window. Clearly, the JavaScript on the main page can change the HTML on the pop-up window. But if you add JavaScript code to the pop-up window, it can turn around and change the HTML on the main window. The built-in variable parent points to the window object that created the pop-up ad. Up here, the main window is changing what's displayed on the pop-up window. In here, we can have the pop-up window change what's displayed on the parent by using the parent object. The parent object is built into every window, and it says, whoever created me, go back to them and change their window. If it's good enough for the main window to change the pop-up window, well, then the pop-up window can then turn around and change the main window using the parent variable. There is only so much room on a slide to display code, so the examples tend to be short. Just keep in mind everything you have learned about the window object and the document object, or the DOM, works with a pop-up window, as long as you use the pop-up window's object variable when2. That's it. Everything you learn to do with window dot or page 2 dot works the same if you use when2 dot. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you on the next lesson.